Good day, everyone, especially to our professor, Dr. Seferina Ranario. Good day, Doc. I am Vanessa Las Piñas Auxtero, a MAELT student, and I'll be presenting to you the life cycle and the 4 laws of ecology. But before we dig into the 4 laws of ecology, let us review first on what is life cycle. So what is life cycle? So life cycle is defined as the developmental stages that occur during an organism's lifetime, and it ends when an organism dies. So life cycle can be comprised of 3 basic stages depending on the species. Like for example, the human life cycle is comprised of 5 main stages. So I have here an illustration showing a life cycle of a man. So when an egg and sperm unite, it fertilizes, and then it turned into a baby, and then into a child, and then into a young person or adolescent, and finally into an adult. So when a man or a woman becomes an adult, they have already the capacity to reproduce. Thus, another life cycle, another generation begins. So the life cycle of organisms can be greatly affected by the 4 laws of ecology, which is developed by Barry Commoner, a physicist and an ecologist. So these are the 4 laws of ecology. So we have the first law: everything is connected to everything else. So we have only one ecosphere, and what affects one affects all. So we have also this second law: everything must go somewhere. And then the third law: nature knows best. And then the fourth law: there is no such thing as a free lunch. So let's tackle first on the first law. So everything is connected to everything else. So I have here a food chain example. So the vegetables, the grain, and the algae are the producers, and these producers serve as the food of the primary consumers. Like for example, the vegetables serve as the food of the man, the grain serve as the food of the chicken, the algae serve as the food of the fish, and then these primary consumers, the fish and the chicken, serve as the food of the tertiary consumers, which are the tuna and the man, the tertiary consumer of the tuna. Okay, so when the producers decrease in number, the primary consumers can be greatly affected. So the survival of an organism depends on the availability of the food it eats. I have also here an illustration showing a forest food web. So the plants, the flowers, the nuts, the seeds, the fruits are the producers, and these producers serve as the food of the primary consumers. Like for example, the mule deer, the Douglas squirrel, the idiots, chickerspot, the Pacific tree frog, the pika, the red-breasted nuthatch eat these producers, the plants, flowers, nuts, and these primary consumers serve also as the food of the secondary consumers. Like for example, the Douglas squirrel can be eaten by the pine marten or the black-tipped jackrabbit, and these secondary consumers serve as the food of the tertiary consumers. Like for example, the pine marten can be eaten by the bobcat or the mountain lion or the coyote. So if, for example, the producers decrease in number, so the primary consumers can be greatly affected. So their survival depends on the availability of the food they eat. So that is how the first law works, the first law of ecology. Everything is connected. So next we have the second law: everything must go somewhere. So there is no waste in nature, and there is no way to which things can be thrown. So like for example, when you burn wood, it doesn't disappear. It just turns into smoke, which rises into the air, and ash, which falls back down to the earth. So the second law simply emphasizes that no matter what you do and no matter what you use, it has to go somewhere. Okay. Next law is the third law, which states that nature knows best. So hurricanes and floods play an important role in the environment. The swamps, the wetlands help cleanse water and regulate flooding. So natural fires burn grasses and trees so that nutrients are put back into the ground and new growth can occur. Okay, so I have here an example of genetically modified organisms or genetically modified crops. So what are these genetically modified crops? So genetically modified foods derived from organisms whose genetic material, DNA, has been modified in a way that does not occur naturally, like for example, through the introduction of a gene from a different organism. So genetically modified crops have these pros and cons. The pros of GMO crops are that they may contain more nutrients, they can be grown with fewer pesticides, and are usually cheaper than their non-GMO counterparts, but these genetically modified crops have also disadvantages. So the cons of GMO foods are that they may cause allergic reactions because of their altered DNA, and they may increase antibiotic resistance. Some researchers also believe that eating GMO foods can contribute to the development of cancer. So the bottom line here is that nature really knows best. It is still best to eat naturally organic plants, naturally grown plants and vegetables, rather than eating genetically modified or genetically modified crops. So that is all about the law, the third law, nature knows best. Okay, so let's move on to the fourth law, which states that there is no such thing as a free lunch. So what does this adage means? There is no such thing as a free lunch. Okay, so everything you do must have a reason behind it. Exploitation of nature will always carry an ecological cost and will inevitably involve the conversion of resources from useful to useless. So this law basically means you have to do something in order to get something in return, or everything has consequences. So I have here example of illegal activities that greatly affects our nature. So first one is throwing of our garbages, our trashes to the river, to the oceans. So this wrongful doing greatly affects the survival of the fishes in the ocean, fishes in the river. They can be poisoned because of the elements of chemical elements contained in the trashes that we throw. So in the long run, we can experience the effect of this wrongful doing. We might eat this poisoned fish, and then we will be affected. More or less, we will die because of this poisoned food. So that's it. What really goes around comes around. So I have also here another example of illegal activity, practices by us humans, the illegal cutting of trees. So though cutting of trees can help us to create buildings, can create papers, but this this activity also contributed a bad effect. So for example, the depletion of the forests greatly affects humans, especially if there is a typhoon. So the soil will be eroded. It is also the cause of floods because there were no trees to zip the water. So that's it. We can experience what we did to our nature. So what we need to do is to, if we cut trees, we must replace it with another one so that the balance will still continue. So that is all about the fourth law, which is there is no such thing as a free lunch. Okay, so before I end my presentation, let me share to you this quote from a famous scientist, Albert Einstein, which states that we must look deep into nature, and then that will be the time that we will understand everything better. So look deep into nature, and then you will understand everything better. Okay, so that that would be all. Thank you very much for watching my presentation, and once again, good day.